Great. I will just get on this supermodel's elevator.
I'm Emily.
Hey, Deckard.
Oh my God, from Movie Leaks?
Yeah.
Wow, I loved your piece on the DC multiverse.
Dude, Kevin put you up to this?
I don't know who Kevin is. But can I just say, like, can we please all agree what canon is? Don't throw away what Grant Gustin is doing on the CW.
Oh my God, right?
Yeah. Oh! Are you okay?
You would make an amazing Wonder Woman. Hello.
Hello. So I think that we should start this off as one would start a junket off, which is, describe your character to me.
Oh my God. I play the co-creator of Junketeers. My name's Josh Horowitz. And yeah, we've lived the life that you just saw a clip of. Ben and I have been Junketeers ourselves for a combined 20 years or so.
Yeah, and if you're not familiar with what a junket is, anytime you see a movie star sitting down doing an interview and they have a poster of the film behind them, that is what is called a press junket. It usually takes place at a really fancy hotel over the course of 2 or 3 days, and a movie star will sit in the same chair and they'll bring in one doofus after another, like me and Josh, to come in and ask them questions. And so we realized from covering so many of them ourselves that this was a world worthy of making fun of and poking some fun at and having, it was a good time.
I was going to say, ironically, maybe brought to life most notably in film in Notting Hill, your previous guest here.
Yes,
Horse and Hound, of course. But yeah, I feel like nowadays people have a vague idea of a junket. But yeah, as Ben said, it's kind of like this insane process that everybody kind of hates. The journalist hates it. The celebrity hates it because it just doesn't make for a fun interview when you're giving the same answers to 50 people, one after another. And we've been on the circuit so long that we've seen kind of like the warts and all of it, the behind-the-scenes stuff, which is fascinating. Every character in this universe, the celebrities, of course, are interesting, but really the Junketeers themselves are just like a crazy cast of people.
And you're right, it is a circuit because you always see the same people. Like, you know the person that will go in. I mean, I have literally been at junkets where people will go in with a bag and load it up with food to take home. And by food, I mean like bread. Like, not even like lobster tail.
Yeah, I mean, this show has just came out in the last few days, and already, some people not in the industry have like asked me and Ben, like, how exaggerated is it? It's exaggerated, but maybe not as much as you would think it is, because it is. There is a sense of entitlement, I think, that a lot of the Junketeers feel. And first of all, I should say, like you said, we're doofus A and B. We live the life too, and we've asked the silly, stupid questions because that's just sort of the nature of the system. But it does bring out some insane behavior that in otherwise normal society would never be tolerated.
And it's funny how in close proximity you'll have one journalist from an entertainment news outlet who all they need from the Iron Man junket is Gwyneth Paltrow talking about her arms. Like, that's all they care about. But then there'll be the guy from a Comic-Con kind of website, and all he wants is Downey Jr. talking about, his suit and what makes it fly, even though it's a movie and it doesn't actually fly. So all these kind of journalists are covering the same press event, but have much different agendas, and they're all kind of trapped in a hotel for a few days, so obviously madness kind of ensues.
And you guys have all seen, like, the clips, speaking of Iron Man, that clip that came out about Renner and Evans talking about Black Widow. Remember the scandal?
Well, I was just thinking, I mean, even from that press store, there were like 4 or 5 examples of crazy interviews. There was Downey walking out of an interview. These things become viral videos all the time now. It happens every single week. And it seems to just be like exponentially increasing. I think partially because the bar has been raised or lowered, depending on your perspective, on these interviews where like a journalist will go in there kind of knowing they have to get a viral video moment out of a 4-minute interview. And what do you do to elicit that? Do you prod the person? Do you ask them about their drug-abusing past? Do you come in with a stupid game? Everybody has this, as you said, different agenda. So that's why I think we're increasingly seeing these kind of crazy, awkward moments pop up online.
And what your show, I think, does so well is it puts into context how these moments happen. I mean, it's not... When you have an hour-long interview with someone over dinner, they're not going to storm out, hopefully, not going to storm out screaming at you about something. But when you are in a dark room being asked, and literally the same questions. I mean, every movie, you know, there's going to be the 5 questions, and that's it.
We were just talking before backstage. I mean, it's like for the talent, for the actor, it is designed to drive them insane. No human being could possibly be sane after sitting in a dark room, in a hotel room, no matter how nice it is, for 7-8 hours, being asked the same questions. This is a form of torture. So of course, by the end of the day, you're going to say something controversial, something off the cuff, something insane, and maybe you'll storm out of an interview. This is people being put under duress. This is like water torture.
And it's a different part of the job, you know. As movie fans, as television fans, we look at these celebrities as actors, but acting on a set is way different than 4 months later sitting in a hotel room as yourself and answering a question. So there's certain actors who love junkets. I feel like Hugh Jackman and The Rock are like, junket day, like, I'm in, let's go. And they're fired up and enthusiastic, while other ones, that's the last thing they want to do. And
Tommy Lee Jones.
And they're a little nervous, like, to their, you know, you're sitting there and you don't know what's going to be thrown at you, so I can understand why you'd be a little apprehensive to want to engage in great answers. So everyone has a different approach to it, but it's a ridiculous system that was perfect for a workplace comedy.
All right, most notable junket story, go.
There's a hotel in London called Claridge's, very famous hotel. They have a lot of press junkets over there. I was interviewing Daniel Craig for The Golden Compass. Don't laugh, I actually like that movie, nobody else did. And the rooms at Claridge's are very hot. So I would get a little, like Richard Nixon, I get a little sweaty in the junket. So I thought my strategy to overcome the warm rooms would be to hold a piece of ice in my hand. So I could shake Daniel Craig's hand and I'd have the ice cooling me down in my left hand. Well, this completely backfired. And about 2 minutes into our 6-minute conversation, it started to drip. And he was like, what's happening over there? Oh, you're dripping ice out of your hand? And now he calls me Iceman in all the interviews we do. And it's James Bond, the coolest guy in the world. And I'm like a sweaty journalist. And so that's my embarrassing junket story.
I don't know if I have anything to rival that. All my best stories are like the names would have to be changed to protect the innocent, because it is people getting angry or calling after the fact, demanding that the tape be destroyed, even when they spoke something on the record. Self-deprecating story in a much smaller way was like it's all those like little human moments you have, because you look at it on Entertainment Tonight and Access, and it has this sheen. Everything like just is glossy and looks like everybody's having a fabulous time. But it's like the small things where like I'm at a junket for Up in the Air and I'm interviewing Vera Farmiga, and my stomach growls like an insane person in the middle of the interview, and it's like we all have to pretend this is not happening and just like, let's continue with our normal conversation. What was it like to work with George Clooney? You know, like it's just, I'm a human being like the rest of us. We sweat,
but even
our stomachs growl.
even not even just in the actual interviews, but just hanging around the hotel as well. I remember being here in New York, it was for the junket of We Are Marshall, and McConaughey wanted to do the junket kind of in character. So he was like walking around the hotel dressed like a 1970s football coach. And we're in the elevator and Justin Timberlake's there for another movie, and he's in the elevator with a bunch of Junketeers, much like the clip you just saw. And McConaughey walks in and sees Timberlake and is like, hey buddy, what's happening? Does the whole thing, they chat, walks off the elevator. Timberlake looks at all the Junketeers and goes, never met that guy in my entire life. Which is just an amazingly awkward, strange, funny moment that you get firsthand from being a Junketeer in that environment.
And it's true. When I did junkets, I did the print version, which means you go into a room and there's a table, and the celebrity sits at the end of the table, and there's like 6 or 8 people. And I remember I did one for Sleepy Hollow with Johnny Depp, and he was great, everything was fine. And I think it was actually my very first junket, because I couldn't believe this happened. So we're done with the interview, I get up to leave, and the rest of the people empty out bags of swag onto the table, and he just expressionless gets a Sharpie and starts signing. And apparently, like, the studio was like, oh yeah, it's standard. That's just what they do, you know. That's just
people are trying to get things signed. People are sometimes.
And I'm talking like random things, like dolls from like 21 Jump Street, you know.
Oh, what
and you're
about
just
getting?
like,
Yeah. Also, a lot of journalists, you've seen this, Mike, so we've talked about this, journalists will sometimes ask for like messages to like their mom, or leave an answering machine message, and all this stuff that is so wholly inappropriate from a quote-unquote journalistic enterprise. And the other thing you mentioned that I think is that we're trying to get at in this show, which is really cool, is there's a hierarchy to the junkets. Forget about like the actors. So you're talking about, you were doing print. We've been lucky enough to work for like national media organizations, MTV and Extra and E. And we get more time than say the local affiliate from Houston or Kansas City. And then the online outlet gets even less time. So there's this like natural high school hierarchy that breeds all this tension. And like the cool kids, from the national outlets, not that we're cool, hang out together, and we're hated by the online outlets who hang out together, and it's just this amazing, fraught with tension atmosphere.
And then you walk out of the interview, and the person's like, "So how was he? Was he an ass like he was last time?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, did she yell at you for asking that question?" And you're like, "No, she was nice." And they're like, "But how? How is that possible?"
Yeah.
And it does turn into this whole like really weird soap opera situation.
And that was what was really fun for a lot of the celebrity cameos in our series. We had Josh Duhamel and Kristen Bell and Bella Thorne and Eli Roth. And, people have done so many junkets themselves over the years. So they were totally game in our show to poke fun at this universe as well.
And like I love with the Josh Duhamel thing of like how many people don't even bother seeing the movie. And they either try to bullshit and, of like, oh yeah, the part where the alien abducts you is just incredibly riveting, or they don't know that the person dies halfway through.
Well, and it's the tip of the iceberg. I mean, these are relatively short episodes. We did 8. Hopefully we'll do more, and we'd like to do in longer form perhaps one day. But like, there's the thing of in interviews when a journalist comes in and asks like one question maybe about the movie they're promoting, and then just goes off somewhere else. That's code for basically the movie is a piece of crap, and nobody wants to talk about it. And even the talent's happy not to talk about it in some cases because they know they're promoting a piece of crap, so they're almost happy to talk about anything else. There are all these unspoken codes to the whole thing.
Yeah, I remember doing a junket for Mr. Woodcock.
Wait, what?
Well, yeah, remember the movie?
Sean William Scott.
Sean William Scott
Classic.
and Billy Bob Thornton. And Sean William Scott walked into the junket room and he goes, "Well, this movie sucks. Let's do an interview." And it just like cut all the tension in the room and it made it for like a really
we don't have to
enjoyable
pretend. Great.
afternoon. Yeah.
Is there someone, and you don't have to name names, I mean, there is kind of a pecking order of the most notoriously difficult junket interviews, right? That we all know.
Yeah, it doesn't take much. Actually, if you want to be industrious and go online, you can find some of like the most notorious, worst junket interview. I'm sure if you Google that, you'll find some like excruciatingly painful ones. And I'm such like a masochist. I love watching them. Like I love watching like a 10-minute, just like the person doesn't want to be there. They hate them. They cut them down. There's one particular person. I won't name the name. I heard a story which has been corroborated by others that he reveled in the fact that he made a journalist cry. A female journalist was in the room, and he was just so caustic and biting, and literally made her cry. And after she left the room, he apparently laughed that off as like an accomplishment. That one person in particular is a notorious one. That's tough.
Why do you think junkets still keep happening? I mean, it's not cost effective, right?
Well, it is on some level. There's so many press outlets now, and if you're a studio and you realize, okay, we only have 6 hours where we're contractually allowed to do press with A-list movie star.
And by the way, that is actually how it works.
That's how it works.
You don't just say, you, Meryl Streep, Julia Roberts, Hugh Grant, whoever, are going to do 3 weeks of press. It's like it's very, very, very contracted.
Not every outlet is AOL Build, where you have big stars coming for half an hour to sit in your offices and do the whole thing. So you got to just pack them in there. So I think for studios who have limited access to the stars of their film, it's a cattle call to get the guy from Kansas City and the E! News guy and just pack them all in 2-3 days. But you're right, it is somewhat of an antiquated system because of everything we just discussed.
I mean, it makes for great comedy, but I've always just wondered why they keep doing them.
I hope they continue to do them because I like watching the horrible, awkward videos week after week. But yeah, I mean, I think the reality is no one's come up with a better model, a more cost-effective model. It's worked in a way for decades now, But yeah, I mean, nothing good really comes out. I mean, at best, what's going to come out of it, like a 3-minute crappy interview on a local affiliate.
And what's fun about our show, too, is that these 5 characters you see on screen, they go through arcs throughout the season where, there's backstory, there's romance, there's sabotage, there's all these things that exist in this junket universe because you asked the question of like, why does it still exist? Well, a lot of people eat off it. It's an ecosystem that employs publicists, makeup artists, the hotels, the actors, the studios. So many people are dependent on this broken system. So that's another reason why it still exists.
And I do love the backstory there of the junket romances, which, but specifically what would you want to call it? The
like the hookups between celebrities and the actual junketeers. Sometimes.
The inter-ecosystem.
Well, it's happened. I mean, again,
relationship. No, I know that's happened.
Without naming names, there was like a destination junket we've talked about where like a famous actor hooked up with a journalist at one point, and certainly within the ranks, a lot of these are travel junkets. We always like to joke that like we met in Bora Bora on the junket for couples retreat, Ben and I.
Dear God, how did I not get invited to that one?
Seriously, that was the heyday of junkets. It was the best junket ever.
Oh, by the way, can we please talk about like the new economy and the downscaling of junkets?
You mean so if Jumper came out in 2016, they wouldn't send Junketeers to Egypt, Rome, and London in the span of a week?
No, and you'd probably get like, instead of a grilled vegetable platter, you'd get like carrot sticks.
Which some Junketeers will let studios know that this is unacceptable. They got flown all the way to Rome. They're in the Colosseum, and they don't have a Wi-Fi connect, and they lose their mind. So
I was in an elevator with a Junketeer once who was bitching. I mean, like really, like enraged that they had flown her in on business instead of first. I mean, she was like in a tirade, and I was like, okay.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing funnier than a sense of like entitlement from somebody that doesn't deserve it. Like our character, like Kevin, the guy in the center here, is kind of like a has-been. He's kind of been doing it for decades, and maybe.
Yeah, he's never graduated beyond the junket circuit.
Exactly, and he's kind of like he probably went to Jumper and went to couples retreat and like and experienced all that great stuff, and now he's like on the downside of his career, but he's still got like the hubris and the attitude of somebody from like 1997. So it's always good. He's somebody that I particularly enjoy writing for because he's just filled with bile and rage against the world.
And what's great about the actor who plays Kevin, his name is Brian Unger. He was a correspondent on The Daily Show in season 1. He was a correspondent and host on Extra for 6 months, so he lived in this world a little bit, and it kind of scarred him for life, and he was able to bring that pain to our series.
Yeah, if nothing else comes of this show, it's therapy for Brian Unger. In shooting this show, he was like having flashback after flashback. It was amazing to watch.
Isn't it amazing, though, that when you go to these junkets, the level of bitterness among the Junketeers? I mean, when you think about it, I mean, the job, no, you're not curing cancer, you're not, solving, like, war crises, but you are being fed top-shelf food in top-shelf hotels in really nice places for the most part, and you get to meet, it's for 3 minutes, but you get to meet Gwyneth Paltrow. I mean...
No, in normal society, I mean, like, talking to anybody with a quote-unquote normal job, they would be like, how do I sign up for that? That sounds like the best goddamn job ever. And yet, somehow, the nature of the people that this attracts, or just the nature of human beings, we find all the crappy stuff to complain about. And that's why the show exists, thank God. Because if they were happy, who would want to watch a show about 5 people happy on the junket circuit? That's boring.
What's been the most notable junket trip you guys ever took?
I mean, Bora Bora for couples retreat. That was pretty nice.
Stop throwing that in my face. Now that's number 2.
They had the houses with the sticks.
We each got a house. We literally got, it was amazing.
You did 1 interview a day. You're there for a week.
Yeah. Did they fly you first or business?
We had our own plane, so that was nice.
It's true. It's true. My wife
Waiting
came,
on
they
Couples
never charged
Retreat
her.
2, really hoping that comes.
Underrated movie,
to be
Couples
told.
Retreat. Guys, look at it again. There's lots of subtext in there. Yeah, I mean, like Rome for Angels and Demons. Like, again, this is the heyday. I haven't gotten on one of these things in a while. Oh, I've been to Moscow for Transformers. I've been,
I ate hummus with Rihanna in Israel. That was a weird trip.
What?
That was a fun trip for press a couple years ago in Tel Aviv.
I interviewed the 4 most attractive human beings on the planet. Speaking of Rihanna, Taylor Kitsch, Brooklyn Decker.
Oh, you went on that Hawaii one, the Battleship.
Hawaii for Battleship. I'm missing somebody, but they were 4 most attractive people in Hawaii.
We've been doing this for a while, and I grew up around it. My dad covers films for 40 years, and I would go when I was a kid to junkets, and so I kind of was around. I remember my dad left the Body of Evidence junket early because Madonna was 2 hours late, and I had a basketball game. I was like 10, and the publicist just didn't understand why he would do that. And I was 2 hours late for Madonna, and he's like, "No, my kid's playing basketball up at Collegiate on the Upper West Side. I'm gonna go." And I always look back at that now, having been in that junket world, and I always appreciate that my dad would put me in front of the material girl.
You know what? I actually have a very similar story. She was really late too, and I had to go pick my kid up from school. And they were like, but how can you, what? And I was like, well, he can either be sitting outside by himself in the dark, or I can go pick him up. I mean,
think
the choice really isn't.
Our characters on our show would probably leave their children at school.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's no surprise that all these people are childless in the show. Yeah.
Oh my God, I love it. What is the junket situation like now?
I mean, it's similar, as you said, it's kind of scaled back. I mean, there are less of those kind of boondoggle crazy like trips nowadays, though for like the tentpole movies like a Transformers, I'm sure the next one, I was...
Tom Cruise likes to,
Tom Cruise.
We're going to do 3 junkets in one day in 5
He did that
time
for
zones,
Edge of
and
Tomorrow.
we're going to go to the moon and do it. Like, he loves big events.
He's old school, yeah.
Yeah, we went to, were you on the Spain trip for night and day? We went to
yeah.
Austria and Spain for night and day with Tom Cruise and Cameron Diaz, and did stunts, and they drove us around cars. Like, he's one of those guys. When's that guy not fired up? I feel like he's always just like, yeah, junket day. Like, he's ready to go.
But
So for the big movies,
Yeah.
they still have him. But like you said, the other ones seem to be a little more scaled down.
Well, and I will say, I mean, you bring up someone like Tom Cruise or like Will Smith, like these are kind of the old school guys that like, I know they got kind of crap from some people, but like the fact that they are old school and they will just bring it, like people like Dwayne Johnson and Hugh Jackman, is like from our perspective or from the Junketeers perspective, like they are manna from heaven, because like they don't give a bad interview and they just do it everything, and they're fantastic.
Oh, Tom Cruise is the greatest. I mean, in every sense. He's punctual, he's friendly, he makes eye contact,
He remembers you.
your
Have you had this
name.
experience?
Oh, yeah.
I've only interviewed Tom Cruise. I mean, only, but like I've had a lucky job. I've interviewed him 4 or 5 times, and every time he sees me at something, I don't know if he has photographic memory or someone tells him like right before every junket or every red carpet who he's going to talk to, but he like makes eye contact and is like, hey, Josh, how you been? And references something from our past, our mutual history together that we don't have. It's crazy.
No, I have a better one for you about Tom Cruise. I had to reschedule an interview with him because I had to go to an event at my son's school, and a celebrity half of his caliber would have been like, sorry, you're not going to do it. Not only did he reschedule, but when the interview actually happened, he was like, so how'd your kid do? How was he? What's his name? How old is he? And he was like, of course you rescheduled. I would have no respect for you if you put me over your child.
I will have words with you if you say anything negative about TC. He is a good man.
He's a good man. And he gives a damn good interview. And if you have anything to say, you need to leave the stage.
Oh, no, I saw, are you kidding? I saw The River Wild with Meryl Streep on 64th Street and 2nd Avenue when I was 12 years old. And I went up to Tom Cruise because I was the same person at 12 as I am at 34. And then 20 years later, I interviewed him. And he goes, man, it was so great seeing you and your dad that time we saw River Wild on the East Side. I was like, wait, what? You remember that?
He's a freak in the best possible way.
Absolutely.
That's
focused
insane.
on it. Yeah.
All right. Questions, people, come on.
Hey guys, thank you for being
We
here.
can even tell you which hotel has the best grilled chicken.
Yeah, we
Serious.
can go deep if you want.
What's up, man?
I watched all eight episodes last night, and I enjoyed most of them. And my favorite
Okay,
one was
let's take a most. Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
My
Let's
favorite
not talk
one
about the least
was,
favorite one.
My
You
favorite
know, as
one.
Hugh Grant, when he was just here, he said, fine is the worst compliment. They were fine.
Good, most of
They're
them.
fine.
Good.
You know,
All we
yeah,
can really ask for,
fine.
Josh, is just most.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah.
So my favorite one was the Chloe Grace Moretz one. What was it like working with her?
Chloe Grace Moretz, who in our on our show is starring in a Gloria Steinem biopic directed by Ava DuVernay. We had a lot of fun making up the fake movies that the stars got to be in, but she was great. She came with her brother Trevor, and she just knocked it out, and she was fun. She did a fake trailer. She was cursing. She was totally game. That's her buddy more than she is mine. But
Yeah, well, thanks to MTV over the years, there are certain like actors that I've talked to like many, many times, and obviously Chloe's one, and she's always been game to do silly stuff with me, and I knew if schedule permitting, she would be down, and she was. She, as all our guest stars were, they really were super down to do anything.
I would see her as Gloria Steinem, by the way.
Oh my
I think
God,
it'd be like a
I
really
am
good-
so proud of our fake trailer that we've not released yet. The trailer for Gloria is as good as any teaser trailer for an Oscar campaign. I'm telling you, we'll drop that at some point.
Next question, please.
Hey, you two. I could listen to these junket stories all day, so I'm very curious. How does one get established in that sort of world? And maybe who gave you guys your break? Because sometimes when I go to these things and I see these characters that are out and about, I'm like, how did these clown shoes even get this opportunity? Yeah, it's totally nuts. So I want to pick your mind a little bit about that.
It's funny, I actually got my start professionally sneaking into them. I was a producer on a syndicated show called Hip Hop Nation. Nobody knew when it was on, so we'd get invited to these junkets, and then nobody knew when it got canceled. So I would say, all right, like, you guys are doing Fast and Furious 2 at the W in LA, like, I'll go out there for that. So I would just keep going. I was 20 years old and I was trying to get on TV. So my first reel had Steve Martin and you know, the late Paul Walker and Queen Latifah and all these people just from sneaking into junkets.
What did Steve Martin talk about on Hip Hop Nation?
It was the movie with
Bringing Down the House.
Okay, sorry. Okay.
Yeah, what are you talking about?
Just
What
curious.
did Steve
Okay.
Martin
Okay.
talk about
All
on
right.
hip hop.
All right.
So I was sneaking
A lot of
into
tension
these
creatively.
junkets, and you know, Josh and I like to pride ourselves on actually seeing the film, doing our homework, showing up on
Our
time.
eyes.
And that goes a long way. So if you all of a sudden have a reputation of, well, that person's professional and he comes on time and he says thank you to the cameraman and thank you to the publicist, like, they'll want you back. And slowly but surely you start to build up a little equity. But I would say that lie, cheat, steal, whatever it takes to get in the door. And then once you do, then be a professional person and you'll figure it out.
No, I mean, you got it right.
Take a shower and brush your teeth.
Yeah, exactly.
That goes a long
Maybe
way,
don't have a
too.
sweating problem like Ben,
Yeah, I get a little hot.
or the stomach thing for me. But yeah, getting in the door is the tricky part. Once you're there, I mean, I do a lot of like silly sketches at MTV over the years, and people ask me how I get people to do what they do. The trick is, like, I didn't start there. Like, I earned their trust and did serious interviews and like made them feel comfortable with me, and I knew my shit clearly, and they knew that they were in a safe place. And then I could suggest, hey, John C. Reilly, do you want to do a half-hour interview where I'm sitting on your lap? Okay, yeah, I'll do that, Josh.
And also, you know, you go to a junket, and like we said, depending on your outlet, there's a certain priority. So I remember really early on in my career, it was the junket for Hollywoodland. You remember that movie with Ben Affleck and Adrian Brody? And Juliana was at E! News, and she went in, she interviewed Ben Affleck, and she went home. And I was covering for E! As well, and I was like, wait, I get 10 minutes with Bob Hoskins? Like, oh my God, like, this is so cool. I did research for like a week. When is a Bob Hoskins interview ever gonna air on the E! channel? But I went and did those 10 minutes in the room, more so for me, but the studio appreciated it. His publicist, who represents other actors, appreciated it. And word starts to go around. It's a tight-knit community. So don't just go trying to get the big star that everybody's trying to get in. Talk to everybody at the junket, because you gotta make the 10-year-old version of yourself proud. And then also it just shows everyone that you're there for the right reasons and you're a professional.
And don't ask questions. I mean, as tempting as it is to like try to get the edgy video and the gotcha moment, no one, I mean, you ask one of those questions and I guarantee you will never be asked back.
It's true. You're going to get the dead-eye glare of the publicist killing you.
Queen Latifah, you just had this new movie, One for the Money with Katie Holmes. Did you babysit Surrey at all on set? This is Queen Latifah. She's not gonna answer. It's stupid. And you don't want to piss off that publicist and never be let back. Like, it's amazing how one little slip up or one just kind of really irresponsible question can be damaging for your.
Or like Kate Blanchett, I was at one where she was asked if her kids have play dates with Brad Pitt's kids. And it's like, I'm sorry, you have time with Kate Blanchett. Kate fucking Blanchett, and that's what you ask her? Like, really? Okay, last question, please.
Hi, out of all of your experiences, what's your most memorable junket?
How dare you gesture towards me? Let me think.
I'll start first.
Okay.
Season 1 of Beverly Hills 90210 didn't come out on DVD for a long time. It finally did in October of 2006. That's my favorite show of all time. We can talk about Tom Cruise interviews up here and Hugh Jackman. Like, I got to interview Ian Ziering. Let me take that again. I got to interview Steve Sanders, the son of Russian Samantha Sanders. That, to me, was the best, most rewarding experience in my career, because it's stuff that I'm a fan of as childhood, and you go into it with the enthusiasm that you would if you were talking with your friends and asking them questions in character. And it doesn't matter about the biggest stars, but for me, I just love the original 90210, and getting to cover that at junkets and press lines is a thrill. Dylan McKay, he wasn't there. He was in Baja, obviously.
No, I mean, that actually sparks like my answer too, in a different way. It's an obsession of mine growing up. Of course, it's been sci-fi and James Cameron, and like Avatar came out when I was sort of like coming into my own at MTV, and we did a 30-minute special. I spent like an hour in his edit room interviewing him, and like I interviewed James Cameron like I think 10 times that year, because it kept getting like re-released every 2 months with extra footage and a sex scene they found on the cutting room floor. It was bizarre stuff like that, and just to like get to know like a childhood hero, whether it's Steve Sanders or James Cameron, no judgment.
Often referenced in the same
Yeah,
sentence.
they're going to team up on
Iron and James
Avatar
Cameron.
2, right?
Sharknado 5.
Yeah, it's those surreal moments, I think, those pinch me moments where you're like, the kid version of me would be going insane right now. And it happens a lot.
And when can we see this?
It's out now. It's on Comedy Central's digital platforms. You just look up Junketeers, and you'll probably like most of them.
Yeah, I would say 6 or 7 of the 8 episodes. No, it's yeah, they're on YouTube right now, and the great thing about them, we're really proud of them. They're 45 minutes. You can stream literally the entire season. It's 6 or 7 minutes each, and it's really
They're
cool.
fine.
We're happy.
They're fine.
They're adequate. I mean, you know,
Some people you might recognize.
Hugh Grant would say they're all right.
They're fine. Thank you guys so much.
Thank
Thank you guys for having us. Really appreciate it.